Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into something that honestly sounds a little bit crazy at first. We're going to look at the fascinating mechanical similarities between launching a business and, well, falling head over heels for someone. I know, it sounds totally wild, right? But I promise you, once you see the underlying architecture here, you literally won't be able to unsee it. So you're probably wondering, what exactly do a retail startup and an obsessive crush have in common? Let's just dive right into this and absolutely shatter the illusion that these two radically different human experiences are, actually different. We almost always tend to view a retail business as this cold, calculated endeavor. And a crush, that's an unpredictable, purely emotional whirlwind. But as we'll see today through the lens of systems thinking, they actually share the exact same structural DNA. This side-by-side comparison brilliantly highlights our core premise. Whether you are dealing with cash registers or dopamine hits, you are operating inside the exact same closed-loop system. Think about the lifeblood of a startup, cash flow. Now compare that to the lifeblood of infatuation, those little dopamine hits. Obviously, they're completely different fuels, for sure, but they are powering the exact same type of engine. Which brings us to our first major roadblock, the linear illusion, and why we fail to see the system in the first place. Okay, so the crucial point here is that we usually fail at both startups and romance because we rely on flawed linear thinking. Instead of seeing a business as just a random pile of marketing assets, inventory, and rent, or a crush as just a basic checklist of objective physical traits, we really need to focus on how these parts flow together. You see, linear thinking looks at a shop as just separate tasks to execute, but systems thinking, it forces us to look at the relationships and the cause and effect dynamics that connect absolutely everything. So, let's see how this builds our framework, organizing both business and infatuation into three structural pillars: the teleological purpose, the feedback loop, and interconnected dependencies. Grasping these three concepts will completely change how you analyze both your professional projects and your personal fixations. Let's break down Pillar 1, the teleological purpose. Now, that term sounds a bit heavy, but it's actually super simple to grasp. Teleological purpose is just a system's ultimate goal. What's really interesting here is the realization that a system isn't defined by what it is, but rather by what it's designed to produce. A business isn't defined by its cool branding, it's defined by its need to survive. You always have to look at the ultimate goal the system is actively working toward. Let's compare them. A startup's purpose? Surviving via customer output. It absolutely needs that external recipient. On the flip side, infatuation is a system designed purely to maximize emotional and neurochemical highs. Notice what is blatantly missing from that right side? A sustainable partnership. Infatuation isn't built for long-term stability at all. Its teleological purpose is literally just to keep the high going. Moving right along to Pillar 2, the reinforcing feedback loop. This three-step dynamic perfectly maps how a customer paying for goods mirrors a minor positive interaction, triggering a massive spike in validation. In a startup, customer behavior dictates cash flow, which dictates inventory, which then attracts the very next customer. In a crush, a tiny interaction causes a validation spike, fueling a much deeper obsession, which makes the next interaction feel incredibly high stakes. It's a wildly reinforcing loop. You can clearly see here how you feed the startup system with data and capital, exactly the same way you feed the psychological system of a crush with hyperfixation and projection. The customer isn't just an end user, they are a vital feedback mechanism, injecting capital back into the start of the system. And similarly, in infatuation, you are constantly injecting your own idealized thoughts right back into your brain, just to get that internal reward of dopamine and adrenaline. Now let's look at Pillar 3, interconnected dependencies. This is where things get really critical. In a startup, the customer is the critical node. If you fall into linear task execution here, you miss the logic of time and resources. Without his input, I will overspend my marketing campaign, create FOMO, or my shop is doomed. Without the customer actually completing that value loop, the entire operation loses its causal anchor and collapses into a massive net consumer of resources. And similarly, your crush doesn't actually rely on the objective person standing in front of you. Infatuation doesn't look at the actual person objectively. It relies entirely on distorted perception as its critical node, treating them as a mirror for your own desires. The glue holding this whole thing together is just the intense chemistry happening purely within your own imagination. So, what happens when reality interrupts? That brings us to breaking the closed loop. As the quote here says, breaking that loop kills the organism.
This brilliantly illustrates the ultimate vulnerability of systems thinking. The entire organism is incredibly fragile if the cycle is disrupted. Because everything is built on these reinforcing loops and interconnected dependencies, snapping just one critical link doesn't just damage the system, it literally shuts it down entirely.
Whether a customer stops buying or real-world data proves your crush isn't who you projected them to be, the structural collapse is completely identical. On the startup side, if the customer behavior stops dictating cash flow, operations just die. On the infatuation side, the moment real-world data contradicts your fantasy, say they do something totally out of character with your projection, that entire internal emotional infrastructure just crashes.
Which brings us to our conclusion: surviving the system.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this final, crucial thought to ponder. If real-world data contradicts your fantasy, does your system actually survive? Take a hard look at the loops you've built in your own life today. Are you relying on a distorted perception, or are you grounded in reality? Check your systems and make sure they are designed not just for a quick high, but for genuine, long-term survival.